Hi, my name is Ashley, one of the educators here at the Living Coast Discovery Center. Today, we're going to get a chance to learn about birding, or bird watching. Birding is the act of going out into nature to observe birds in their native habitat space. Here in San Diego, we're extremely lucky as we are a stop on the Pacific Flyway. This means seasonally we get all kinds of different birds. In fact, San Diego is considered one of the birdiest places in the country, with over 500 different species of birds gracing our area. Birding is a popular activity here in the United States. Did you know there are over 47 million different birders? And they all got started just like you, learning the basics. So let's go over 5 tips and tricks for birding here in San Diego. Number 1, you want to make sure you do a little bit of research. Do some research on the location, the plants, the animals, and the weather. So that way you're better prepared for any situation that might arise. That way you know what type of birds you're probably going to be seeing. Should they be on the ground, or are you expecting to find birds flying in the sky? Number 2, you want to make sure you dress for success. Now, birds often see and hear us way before we see them. Now, this can be because we often walk making lots of noise, or we're wearing some really bright colors. So what you want to do is make sure you are wearing some neutral colors. You don't need to wear camouflage, but you want to make sure that you're not wearing bright neon colors so you don't stick out of the environment. You want to blend in a little bit. Number 3, you want to make sure that you are bringing the right gear with you. So this can be things like binoculars, a field guide, a camera or a journal so you can record what you're seeing, as well as an app. So I recommend the iNaturalist app, as you can actually submit pictures of what it is you're seeing, and other people will help you to be able to identify them. Field guides are very useful, so you can identify the birds while you're out there, or you can just enjoy the time just watching the birds. Number 4, you want to hit the field and explore. Birds are in every environment. They are found all over the world, including in your backyard. So you don't even necessarily have to go somewhere far away. You can just spend some time practicing your birding skills in your own backyard or off of your patio space. But you can also go out to nature spaces like the national wildlife refuges or any open canyon preserves, as we have so many of them here in San Diego. And last but not least, tip number 5 is going to be respect wildlife and the habitat. So whenever you go out birding, you do want to make sure that you are giving the birds proper space. You don't want to get too close or approach them. You want to allow them to do whatever it is they are doing. You don't want to disturb their natural behaviors. This includes staying on the trails as you're walking around and making sure that you're not getting too close to any nests or anything like that. That'll help allow the birds to continue with their own natural behaviors and give you the best experience while you're out birding. Identifying birds can be really tricky. Here in San Diego, we have a lot of different birds, so this can make it quite difficult. But the more you practice, the better you'll get. First things first, to start your identification practice, you want to make sure you learn a little bit about bird groupings. There are a couple of different bird groupings that are pretty easy to start with, such as learning things like birds of prey versus songbirds or even shorebirds. Just general characteristics that are going to help you identify what type of bird you might be looking at. And then you can start breaking down all those little details later. Another way is to look at their body shape and their size. Different birds have different shapes to help them to survive the different habitats that they all live in. So some birds have really big bodies and some birds have really small bodies. Some might have really long legs and some might have really short legs as well. So looking for those types of characteristics will help narrow down your search of what kind of bird you're looking at. Another thing to look for is their behavior. What are you actually seeing the bird doing? Is it casually wading through the water? Is it flying in the air, soaring in small, slow circles? Or is it flying with really fast wing beats? All of these different behaviors can help tell you a little bit about what type of bird you might be looking at. Another thing to check out is their field marks. What is on their feathers that makes them a little bit unique? Do they have a ruby red throat, or a eye spot on their tail feathers, or maybe even things like ear tufts on the top of their head? What type of characteristics do they have that help them look a little different than other birds that you may have seen? Lastly, you can also identify birds using vocalizations. Vocalizations are actually really hard to be able to tell apart. Birding by ear can be quite difficult sometimes, but birds have very unique vocalizations. They all have distinct sounds or calls. So by learning a couple of them, you can help yourself by starting to learn what type of vocals you might hear from something like a red-shouldered hawk or a tern, as these birds are very loud and have pretty distinct calls, which will help you to be able to start your identification process. Take a moment to observe my animal ambassador and see what you can tell on your own. Let's look at group first. Because this bird has sharp talons and a sharp hooked beak, I can tell that this bird belongs in the bird of prey category, or a raptor. This bird uses those talons and beak to help catch and eat its prey. Let's look at the shape and size. This bird is large, pretty robust, and has wide wings. Its body size is in between a crow and a goose, so it's not super big, but it's also not small either. And it has a short and wide tail. Let's look at the behavior. This bird is perching and scanning, looking around to see what it can find and checking out its surroundings. If this bird was flying, you would usually see this bird flying in large, wide, soaring circles. Let's look at the field marks next. This bird has a white chest or belly with streaking of darker browns on the chest, dark brown wings, and a red or cinnamon colored tail. This is going to be a key identifier for what type of bird we are looking at. Let's also listen for the sound. Do we hear any vocalizations? While there's no sound coming out of this bird at the moment, this bird does have a very distinct call. One that you have probably heard before, as it is often used in Hollywood for many different movies when an eagle flies by. This is Hawkeye, our red-tailed hawk. Red-tailed hawks are most commonly found in open country, along fields, and perched on telephone poles, fence posts, or tall trees. They occupy just about every type of open habitat in North America, including deserts, scrublands, grasslands, roadsides, fields, and even things like parks. They are also very common in urban areas near freeways. Often you can find them flying around in freeways, looking for any dead organic material that they can find on the side of the road. Now that we've gone over some of the best ways to get started, let's go over some common birds of San Diego County. Creating a list of the most common is quite difficult, as there are lots of factors to consider. However, there are some birds that are a little easier to get started identifying that you can find pretty much all over in San Diego. Let's first go over some common birds of prey. Cooper's hawk are a type of hawk that you can often see flying around in San Diego. The Cooper's hawk is a mid-sized species, and they're often found in woodland areas throughout the whole state, as well as in forested suburbs. Despite the wide distribution, Cooper's hawks are relatively secretive and are most likely to be seen briefly prowling above the edge of a forest or field. They have a long tail and powerful rounded wings. Cooper's hawks are adept at pursuing prey through dense tree canopies at high speeds, as they are known as being accipiter hawks because they will hunt other birds in flight. Osprey are another type of bird of prey that you might see near the ocean. Ospreys are large, distinctive hawks with a slender body with long, narrow wings and long legs. Ospreys fly with a marked kink in their wings, making an M shape when seen from below. Their color is brown on top and white below, with wings that are mostly white with dark patches near the wrists. often found near water, hunting fish in shallow water, going down feet first. So you'll often see ospreys in the bays, around the marshes, as well as in the open ocean. Let's go over some common marine birds. So birds you'll find close to any type of shoreline habitat. The American coot is a plump chicken-like bird with a rounded head and sloping bill. They have a tiny tail, short wings, and large feet that are visible when they take flight. Coots are smaller than a mallard duck, about 15 inches in length. Coots are dark gray to black with bright white bills and foreheads. That's going to be your key distinguisher to be able to tell them apart. They also have legs that are yellowish green. Mostly, you will find coots swimming in the water looking for aquatic plants. Egrets are another type of marine bird that you can find on our shorelines. We have two different types, the great egret and the snowy egrets, that are most commonly found on our shorelines. The great egret is going to be the tall one. It's going to be tall with long legs, found wading through the water with a long S-shaped neck and sharp dagger-like bills. Great egrets are white in color with black legs and a yellow beak. You will find egrets either standing still, hunting for fish, or actively walking to their next hunting location. Now, snowy egrets look very similar, but are much smaller in size, and they actually have yellow legs. House finches are small-bodied finches with large beaks and flat heads. The wings are short and make the tail seem long by comparison. House finches are only about 5 inches in length. Males tend to have a red face and chest, while females are plain grayish-brown. Often, finches will be seen around bird feeders. Sparrows are a small bird species, with song sparrows being considered a medium-sized sparrow. This means that it is about 4 to 6 inches in length, with a short bill and a rounded head. Song sparrows have a long and rounded tail with broad wings for their size. Song sparrows are brown with thick streaks going across their chests. If you're close enough, you may see gray on the song sparrow's head. Sparrows can be seen moving rapidly through dense, low vegetation with short flights full of fluttering wing movements. Birding is a great way to go outside and enjoy nature. I hope this video has taught you some different ways that you can go out and identify some of the native birds in your area. There are some things you want to keep in mind, including the American Birding Association's rules for birding. These are very simple, and basically it just means to respect and promote the birds, the community, and the laws and rights of others. So make sure whenever you go out birding, you're staying on trails and following any of those posted rules and regulations by the nature space you're at. Always keeping a safe distance from any of the birds as well as other people, and making sure that you're not making any loud noises or things that might disturb the animals. We always want to enjoy the birds doing exactly what it is they would naturally be doing out in the wild. Now, there are some things that you can do to help save birds, as here in San Diego, with all of our urbanization, some of the birds are able to survive that, but not every bird can. One of the big issues birds face is actually car strikes. So if you're driving down the freeway or on the side of the road and you see a bird starting to swoop in, you want to try to slow down a little bit or move on over just a little bit so you can allow that bird to pass. Another common issue is that people will have lots of big windows and birds will often fly into these windows. So putting up stickers on your windows can actually help stop birds from flying into those glass panels. And lastly, another thing that people love to do to encourage birds to come into their own backyard is you can plant native plant species in your backyard or your front yard to attract all the different native wildlife, as well as provide food to all kinds of different native wildlife. So we hope you've had a great time learning about birding, and go out and enjoy what you can find in your own backyard.